Hello and welcome to maybe the most exciting video that I personally have filmed. I haven't been this excited for a video in so long, and that is because it is themed / related to the show, my favorite show right now, called Heartstopper. If you don't know what Heartstopper is, where the hell have you been? It has been all over Netflix, all over TikTok, all over YouTube. Heartstopper is the series adaptation of the graphic novels by Alice Oseman. I have already read all of the graphic novels that have been released anyway. They're just so wholesome and so sweet. The Netflix series is a tiny bit different because they have actually added a character called Isaac, who I'm pretty sure is meant to be the replacement of Aled last. I think they did that because Aled had so much depth to him and like such a big backstory that couldn't really be explained fully in Heartstopper. So yeah, they added Isaac to kind of take that place, which is so fine with me because hopefully that means there'll be like a spin-off series or something like that to do with the lead. That is how Isaac got introduced to the Heartstopper series, and I'm so glad he was because he's our little bookworm. Literally, I think in every single scene that he's in, he's holding a book, and so I thought it would be really fun to read every single book that Isaac reads. And also I think it would really help me understand Isaac more as a character because you don't really get told that much about him. I just wanted to preface this by saying someone else has already done this video. I'm so annoyed because I had this idea like 3 weeks ago, but I'm such a slow reader and I was filming another book video before this, so I had to just finish that one first. And now it's been like a month since the series came out, and this other guy called Joel from Fictional Fates, he has also done this video. If you're on like a Heartstopper kick, then definitely go and watch his video as well. As always, like, I'm late to the trends. Joel is a better reader than me, so I'm pretty sure he read literally every single book that Isaac read. I'm too slow at reading to do that, and I've actually already read some of the books that Isaac read, so I'm not gonna read them again. There's also a few books that I don't want to read, so I'm not gonna put myself through that. For example, June Messiah. Oh, first of all, I haven't even read the first book, so I'm not gonna read that and then this, especially because a lot of people said they didn't like June. There's Naruto volume 72. Babe, I'm not gonna read 71 Naruto books before I read the 72nd one, so I'm sorry, I'm gonna skip that one. Quantum mechanics. I did physics A-level twice. I got a B second time. I'm scarred from taking physics A-level, and I will never read a physics book ever again. Thank you very much. The next book I have actually read, and that is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Amazing series. And then the last book that I won't be reading from the list is There Is No Planet B. If I'm taking in that type of information, I really prefer documentaries. I find it easier to get it in my brain. Also, I feel like I'm quite clued in on the environment. Don't look at all of my paper books. So yeah, I just wanted to choose the ones that I thought maybe the most entertaining for me and for you. I'm not going to tell you which ones I'm reading though, so you'll have to watch the video to see. I also have a surprise book at the end that, to be honest, I didn't even know was a thing, so I'm really excited for that one. Long-winded introduction out of the way. The first book that I want to start with is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. I thought it made sense to start with a book by Alice Oseman since Heartstopper is her baby, and coincidentally this book actually has the character Aled Last in it, who Isaac is based off. I am going to continue reading this book and hopefully finish it soon so that I can give you a proper review of everything, tell you what it's about, all that jazz. Do you like jazz?
I'll be there in 15, baby, you know you got me, you got me. Wish you knew me at 19, back then I wasn't talking to anyone but me. Though when I think about it, that wouldn't even make a difference. When you feel no feels that you make that your mission, oh, the others are a nuisance. Everything before this, now I know it's practice. I don't have a game plan, I don't have a
at me. The game is up. I think I've said enough. I'll just forget all the rest. Look at us, two kids just out of luck. But I think that you're the best of the best.
Yeah.
I've just finished Radio Silence, and that was maybe one of the fastest reads I've done in a really long time. There's a good 400 pages in this, and it literally only took me less than a day, and I think that is because the chapters are so short. Like, some of them are literally only a page long, but also I just really like the book as well. I'm gonna rate it a 3/3.5, which doesn't sound like really high. That's just because, yes, I really enjoyed it, but it didn't feel like anything super special to me. Not like Heartstopper. But yeah, I still really enjoyed it. I definitely relate to Aled and Francis like massively, because I too was one of those students who, not to like toot my own horn or anything, but I did kind of find academics quite easy without trying too hard. That made me think that the only option for me was to go down the academic route, aka go to university after school, get a high-paying job, make money, and then I'll be happy. And then that all resulted in me dropping out of university after 6 weeks of being there for economics. Now, just like Francis, I really want to do art. I want to be an illustrator. When everyone around you, your school, your parents, your friends even, when everyone kind of bases your value as a person on what grades you get, it's really difficult to then just reject all of that, because then you're like, who am I? I'm 23 now, and looking back at it, I can tell you now, if you are still in school and you are super stressed about getting good grades and stuff like that, yes, it does matter to a certain extent. You know, if you do want to go to university, that's amazing. But if that isn't the journey that you want to take, that is so fine as well. In fact, it's probably even better that you know that now, because it took me a gap year and then going to university for 6 weeks, dropping out, spending a year floating around not really doing anything. It took me all that time to realise I don't want to do that, and I want to do something creative with my life. I feel like this book definitely reinforces that. So in that sense, I really loved it. I also really love how this is just a book about friendship, really. A lot of YA novels tend to base themselves around like a coming of age romance, which is lovely. I love that. There's not really many about friendship, so this was really refreshing. That is Radio Silence. I just think this is something that would entertain Isaac very well. So the next book from Isaac's list that I want to read is actually an autobiography, Proud, by Gareth Thomas. I'm not 100% certain who Gareth Thomas is. He might not be the first openly gay rugby player, but he's definitely like the most famous one that I know of anyways. So yeah, I think this is gonna be very inspiring as well. Let's get started with Proud.
Summer rain on a window. Watch the time float on. Cool air blows a memento as I fall behind. I'm so sorry for dreaming about the future. Maybe I'll be better when we're old enough. Hey, I'm sorry for dreaming about the future. You and I'll be better when we're old enough.
I finished book number 2 and I'm gonna rate it a 3. A solid 3 out of 5. In Gareth's defense, I'm not really into biographies or autobiographies. I'm not sure what it is about autobiographies that I don't gel with. I think I would much prefer to see like a documentary about his life. I think it would be easier to digest. He's definitely had a very eventful life, so it's not like it was boring or anything. I just found it pretty hard to get through. So yeah, basically Gareth was the first man in professional sports to be openly gay, and of those sports it was rugby as well, which is so typically very macho and heterosexual. So of course that made it 100 times harder for Gareth. I'm not really into rugby, so I don't really know the rules. So obviously there is quite a lot of rugby talk, but I didn't hate it. What really shocked me was that he came out in 2014, and that doesn't seem like that long ago. It was 8 years ago, but it still doesn't feel like it should have been such a big deal, but clearly it was. It's so strange because in today's world, or in my world anyway, like all of my friends are gay or lesbian or bisexual, and it's just so normal. Because of how things are now, I forget how awful it used to be, and I mean it still is awful for a lot of people. Sometimes I do think that I have created a bubble around myself of accepting people. So when I see negative comments on Instagram or TikTok on like other people's posts, I'm just so shocked. I'm like, wow, people still think like that? Like, you forget that people are still assholes out there. Also, it makes sense to have this book in Heartstopper because Gareth was a rugby player who came out as gay, and little Nicky, he came out as bisexual and he was also a rugby player. I think his story is very inspiring and definitely would help so many people come out themselves. The book, solid 3. His story, 10 out of 10. So yeah, that is book number 2 from Isaac. Book number 3 is a big one. I'm going to wait for this man to stop trimming his hedge. Not an innuendo, I promise. And then I'll introduce you to the next book. Good morning. So the next book that I'm going to read that Isaac read is actually like something that I should have read ages ago, but I just haven't gotten round to it because I'm not a fan of classics. In general, I just don't get along with them. I think they're usually very overrated. Also, they tend to only really be great if you analyse them fully, and I can't be bothered to do that. That's why I tend to stay away from them. However, Isaac clearly doesn't. So the next book that I'm going to read is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I'm gonna get started with this and see if Isaac has good taste in classics. Swear I haven't. My eyes are just red. I'm tired. Excuse my nakedness. I am in front of my window, so I'm just going to cover myself up so that the people across the road don't look at me. But I owe you an explanation. I couldn't read Pride and Prejudice. I just couldn't get through it. I read 100 pages, and that is usually like my stopping point for a book, which, to be fair, is quite a lot of time and effort, and it's definitely enough time for a story to be interesting, at least at some point. So it's not like I didn't give Pride and Prejudice a chance. So many of you are going to hate me because Pride and Prejudice, it has such a cult following, and so does the film. I didn't really enjoy the film either. I'm sorry, but Keira Knightley. And yeah, the book, it's just a book about girls being married off to men. I'm just not interested. At its core, it's about this one girl who is going against all of that, kind of. Not really, because she still ends up falling for the most horrible man. I really don't like Mr. Darcy at all. He's such a dick. But just because he looks at her and is like, you're not like other girls, you're actually like a cool girl, she's like, oh my god, I love you. Like, fucking wise up. Maybe that was feminism of the time, being a cool girl. I didn't want to read another 250 pages of the same stuff. Going to balls. What else do they do? I ended up buying a different book. I was stupid and I didn't bring one of the books from the list because I thought I was gonna like Pride and Prejudice. So I went to the W.H. Smith's in the airport and bought a book that I've been wanting to buy for ages, but I've been trying not to buy books, and so I didn't let myself. But this was an emergency, so you know, it doesn't count. I bought Young Mungo. It's not on Isaac's list, but I still believe Isaac would read this because it is a story about two young boys from Glasgow. One's Catholic, one's Protestant, which at the time you just don't mix. They fall in love, and it's just, yeah, their story, how difficult, obviously, first of all, being gay at the time would have been, and especially in the estates that they lived on were definitely very homophobic. Mungo's older brother is actually a gang leader, and so he's like super toxic. So if you're like me and you can't get through classics, then how about you replace it with Young Mungo? So yeah, I'm super excited to get back to this after I finish the other books that are actually on the list. For example, the one that I started today, and I'll probably finish today because it's so short, is Gender Explorers by Juno Roche. I'm going to continue with this book and give you a proper rundown at the end. A nap before I fell asleep. I finished Gender Explorers. I've rated this book 4.5 out of 5. When I started this, I didn't know what it was actually about. I thought it was actually going to be like an autobiography of Juno, or maybe, I don't know, some extended essays about gender. But I'm really happy that it was the interviews, because maybe I'm watching, reading, listening to the wrong things, but I don't consume that much media that involves trans people. The only things that I've seen, Heartstopper, which has Elle. I've read a book, I'm Not Your Girl, or I Want to Be Your Girl. I read it years ago whilst I was still at school, and it was about a transgender girl. I'll try and find that book because that was amazing and I think you should read it. I've seen The Danish Girl with Eddie Redmayne, which was about a trans woman. Again, I watched that years ago, so I don't know how it holds up. It was amazing to have so many trans stories all in one place, since you literally don't get them anywhere else. And these are real life people. So I definitely learnt a lot, especially from the children's perspectives. We are told so often that young children and teenagers don't know their minds well enough to be able to decide whether they are a boy or a girl or non-binary, yet we allow other boys and girls to decide that they're boys and girls. To hear these trans children speak about their experience just confirms that they do know their own bodies and their minds and are fully capable of deciding which gender they want to identify as. I also really enjoyed hearing the parents' perspective because, I mean, some of the children are so young, like 5 years old, that you kind of get a little interview of what's your superpower? My superpower is that I'm a girl or whatever. Whereas the parents are more like detail oriented. So you'll hear about how the parents approach the schools and ask them to change their names on the register, get different uniforms, that type of thing, because you don't really think about all of that in the process. And it's also just refreshing to hear so many parents being so supportive, because we do tend to hear a lot of bad stories, which obviously there are, but it's not very encouraging. The one thing that I would change about this book, not change but add, every single interview was done in the same way, so it got a little bit repetitive. So maybe there could just be a different style of interview, or maybe asking slightly different questions. But other than that, I loved this. And then of course Isaac would have been reading this. Probably he would have read this anyway, even if he didn't have a trans friend, but I know he was doing it for Elle and he wanted to be like the best ally he could be. So we love Isaac for that. This is actually the last book that I'm reading from Isaac's list. However, I do have one more, a little surprise book. It's not on the list, but it obviously has everything to do with Heartstopper. I have read all of the Heartstopper graphic novels. However, I have not read this, Nick and Charlie. This is a Heartstopper novella, which is like a short story. I just don't care what the story is about. I just want to read more about Nick and Charlie because I love them. Finished. Well, isn't this just the sweetest little story? This really did just feel like a treat, and it definitely didn't disappoint. It has the exact same vibe as the novels, but it's just written instead. I think Nick and Charlie are just written so realistically, and it's basically just about a time before Nick goes to university and some trouble arises between the two, which I never thought would happen. Isaac would read this. He would definitely read a book about his friends, and I really enjoyed all of the books that he read, apart from Pride and Prejudice. Out of the books that I read, these three are my favourite: Radio Silence, Gender Explorers and Nick and Charlie. Let me know if you've read any of these, or if you've read any of the other ones that I didn't get to read. It was confirmed like a week or two ago that Heartstopper is getting another 2 seasons. I'm just happy. I'm just so happy for the whole cast because they genuinely seem like really nice people. I just think they deserve it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and maybe when the new seasons come out I can make a part 2 and a part 3 to this. We can see which books he reads next. Okay, bye bye.